One of Congress's most dedicated anti-Semites, making it through her primary. Ilhan Omar, one of the more well-known Democrat members of Congress, the people in Minnesota, they getting a crack at this, or Michigan. She's Minnesota, right? I think she's Minnesota, old Tim Walz's state there. And the Democrats in the primary had the opportunity to reject anti-Semitism, but fully embraced it by a pretty healthy margin. So congratulations to the Democrat Party for making that decision once again and deciding to side with the Hitler Youth, the neo-Nazis, and the anti-Semite wing of your party. It was a choice, and the choice has been made. So you got to give them at least something for dedication. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Wednesday, halfway through the week. Friday coming up, we will be broadcasting from Scramblers Friday Road Show, of course, sponsored by Custom Shade Window Tinting, which is powered by 3M Window Film. You know, the top of the hour news, if you heard it, referenced that the Washington Post editorial board has written that it is politically necessary. Kamala Harris must start doing interviews. She must start answering questions. She must start making herself accessible to the media. The premise for the Washington Post piece there, that it is politically necessary, unfortunately is inaccurate. And it is inaccurate because of the media. Clearly, at least at this point in the game, it is not necessary. She has seen an increase in polls, particularly in some of the swing states. Now, that being said, I've talked about the polls, and what the polls say today are going to be different than what they say a week after the first debate. In all likelihood, potentially anyhow. Could very well, barring any sort of unforeseen circumstances, see an even greater increase after the convention. But this is because she doesn't have to campaign when the media is campaigning for her, when the Washington Post is campaigning for her. When you are publishing covers of magazines that just portray her as this historic figure. I'm watching yesterday on, it was having lunch, and they had NBC on during the noon hour. And it was local news, but then they cut, they carry some national stuff. And it was a story, the audio wasn't on, but it was clearly a story about the campaign. And it was a side-by-side, split-screen photo, Kamala on one side, Trump on the other. And the photo of Trump was him, and it looked like he's just angrily screaming into the microphone like some sort of madman. And then on the other side of the split screen was Kamala Harris smiling, with the sunshine glowing down on her face, with this angelic presence, as if she is here to be Mamala for all of us, to embrace her, to embrace all of us, rather, in her great compassion. And when the media does this, of course she doesn't have to sit down with you. You have crafted for her the ability to not find it politically necessary to sit down with the media. They are, now, of course, they're going to continue to support her, and they separate their aggravation and perhaps even indignancy over the fact that she is hiding, that she is not actually campaigning. I mean, she goes out and gives the exact same speech at a couple of different events and so forth. But when it comes to arguing why it is that she should be elected, she leaves that up to the media. And while this may be a source of aggravation for them, they see that as a separate issue from whether or not she should be president of the United States. It doesn't change that for them. They don't view the inability of her to deal with even a friendly press as connected to her ability to deal with world leaders or deal with congressional leaders or deal with union leaders or deal with any sort of adversarial situation. They don't make that connection because to them, the decision has already been made, and that is she must be president of the United States. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. All that matters is that the horrible, awful Hitler Trump and his Nazi supporters do not get power. This is why they have every step along the way rigged this election in order to first try and help Biden. And when they realized that wasn't going to work, they overturned all 50 of those elections that the Democrats had in 50 states and then said, here's your new person, then rigged the Democratic National Convention to where the delegates aren't able to have any sort of challenges to her at the actual convention, so they do the virtual roll call ahead of time. So the entire thing with their help is rigged. But it's pretty laughable and demonstrates a detachment from reality when some of these same media outlets claim that it's politically necessary for her to sit down and to start answering questions. Why? I mean, trust me, I'm not happy with this environment that has been created by the media. I'm not happy with the fact that we are watching play out, and the results will tell us whether this is effective or not. The media essentially pick our leader. Will they be effective? Lord knows they're doing everything they can in order to try, but whenever it's clear to the Democrats that you're doing that for them, why should she? It's not politically necessary, unfortunately, for her to answer questions. Got some great audio, including some very interesting analysis on CNN about some of the polling numbers and what we continue to see. Some of these poll numbers, Kamala's up here, Kamala's up there. But within those polling numbers, CNN does a little bit of digging and compare and contrast. And their analyst is like, listen, if you are a Kamala supporter, don't be popping the champagne yet, because this can be very deceiving. And I don't think this is in any way, shape, or form on CNN's behalf being done in order to just provide clear, honest, transparent interpretations. But I think they're a little bit worried that the Democrats are getting ahead of themselves and they're going to feel very secure, and that people are Democrat, particularly young people, because the media is creating this sense of inevitability, that they won't bother to go out and vote. Because they'll be like, oh, well, she's going to win anyway, so what's the point? And so I think that they are beginning to recognize the reality of their efforts to create the sense of inevitability and how that could backfire on them with younger voters. We're going to have weather in a moment. It is going to be a hot couple of days. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we're going to have rain throughout the morning, clearing up around noon, and then we will immediately go into a heat advisory. We'll see a high near 90 and a heat index value around 100. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 73. Thursday, mostly sunny and hot with a high near 95. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 92.
Wilder RV, in addition to handling your brand new RV needs. Financing available as well in Clinton, Missouri. Full spectrum of repairs, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, water damage, slide outs, appliances, you name it. If it is a problem with your RV, they can handle it. They have free on-site sewer dump. Propane bottle fill, huge selections of parts, from hard parts like slide-out motors, appliance parts, hitches, you name it, they got it again. Maybe you're brand new to the world of RVing and you don't know what all you need. They got the supplies, they got the knowledge. Maybe you haven't used your RV in a couple of years and you just need that complete systems check, because the last thing you want to do is you do get it out, or even if it's just been a year, you don't want to get it out and you're wanting to have a nice relaxing time. Enjoy nature, and the fridge is out, or, just something isn't working, and it may not be the biggest deal in the world, but it just somehow disrupts what otherwise is this perfect weekend or week away. So make sure that you're prepped for it. Wilder RV can take care of all of those needs. Again, Clinton, Missouri, you can find them wilderrv.com. The media is presenting a bit of a contradiction here, and the contradiction is, on one hand, they are beginning to press, and, when is Kamala gonna, talk to us? She's supposed to be running for president, and she's not, and she isn't running for president. The media is running for her. And this doesn't impact their belief that she needs to be president of the United States. So that's a totally separate issue. So we should not fall into this belief that, well, maybe the media, maybe they'll start to wake up. And no. That's not, they compartmentalize these things. This is just listen. It is entertaining to watch, however, when the media does press people from the Harris campaign about what is she even doing today? She's not even campaigning, because you just listen to them and they're very AI-ish. They're very robotic. It's just the same regurgitated line after line after line. And it's somewhat amusing to hear that these are people who want to be in power. This is CNN with one of her campaign spokespersons, Adrienne Elrod, on what she's doing today. This is yesterday.
What's on the vice president's schedule today?
Well, she's traveling and talking to voters and getting her message out there to the American people, something that she's been doing from the very start of this campaign, and something that she certainly did when she was President Biden's running mate as vice president. But look, you just mentioned the speech she's going to be giving in
that's right. I was asking about today, and I don't think she's got any campaign events on the schedule today, does she?
Well, she and Governor Walz have been traveling across the country. They hit nearly every battleground state last week. On the campaign trail, they raised $36 million within the first 24 hours of Governor Walz joining the ticket. And what she's going to be doing Friday is taking her economic message directly to the voters in North Carolina. I certainly don't want to get in front of exactly what she's going to say, but she's going to talk a little bit about how she's going to make sure that she's putting consumers first as part of her economic plan. She's going to take on corporate price gougers. She's going to take on junk fees. And that's something that, John, she did when she was Attorney General of California, something she continued to do as the United States Senator of California. So she's going to be taking that message out to voters, and I look forward to seeing more of what she's going to say on Friday.
I think we all do, and I'll ask you more about that in just a second. The reason I was asking about today is because it seems like she has time, if she wanted, to do an interview with a member of the media or do a news conference, correct? There does appear to be that time if she wanted.
Well, look, she has said on the campaign trail that she would be doing an interview at some point. She said that, I think, last week during a rope line or when she was talking to reporters. But look, what is important here, John, is that she is taking her message directly to the American people. She hit a number of battleground states. I think we had 15,000 people in Detroit last week, 12 to 13,000 in Nevada. She's been taking her message to the voters and drawing large crowds. So she's actually having those direct conversations.
But not today. All I'm saying is not today. She could do an interview today, I would think, because she's not out there today.
Well, look, she's taking her message directly to voters, and just because she doesn't have an interview schedule on her public schedule doesn't mean that she's not taking her message directly to voters.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure that the average person appreciates the significance of Kamala Harris running for president so late in the game. She didn't even run for president. All this time, she was just handed it. She was handed a nomination that somebody else won. She didn't even have to worry about any challengers at the national convention because they did a virtual delegate vote casting ahead of time so no one could challenge her. And she's still not out campaigning. People who are running for president, their calendars, traditionally speaking, and the last time around with Biden, of course, was an exception as well, are like just absolutely packed. No daylight in there. This is why so often candidates will get razzed because they'll be in Green Bay and then say, I love Cincinnati, or, they don't know where they are. And the opposition will really kind of razz on them, but they understand the reality of this. It's because you are just bam, 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 one place to the other, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And you're getting briefed on what we're planning for next week and shifting things around. Oh, we've got this event that, an opportunity to pop up here. Can we move this over here? To have what is that the traditional presidential campaign where Kamala Harris, and you're like, well, we don't even really have anything planned today. I mean, almost that alone should be reason for people not to vote for this individual because this individual is not even running. She is just standing there expecting it to be handed to her, and you can't blame her. She got the nomination handed to her. She didn't have to lift a finger. I mean, you want to talk about entitled? And now she sits back and she watches the media glorify her. She watches the media cover for her. Go out there and, again, campaign on things. And at some point she had to be thinking, there had to be this conversation. Okay, the border's the biggest issue here. That was kind of my job. I was the border czar after all. How are we going to handle that? And then you turn on the TV and you find all of the networks out there say, well, she was never the border czar. Every one of the issues going into the campaign that the Kamala Harris camp must have looked at and said, okay, these are going to be challenges that we have to figure out how to maneuver. They're sitting back and watching the media do it for them so that they don't have to do anything. Is this really how we want our presidents to be chosen at this point? Where we are just told, look, this person, they're not going to campaign, that we're just going to hand them the nomination, and then the media is going to tell you who to vote for. The media is going to tell you what is important, what you need to believe, what you need to understand, and just vote for that individual. Is that really what we want in this country? Now, there's a little bit of insight here, and we'll talk about this more in depth, and this should come as no surprise. When she mentions, well, Kamala next week, she's going to unveil her economic plan. I don't want to get ahead of it, but essentially it's going to be blame Americans. It is going to be accusing all of the businesses in this country of price gouging, claiming that the reason every single business in existence, from the small businesses to the large businesses, have raised prices because collectively they conspired in order to screw you over. And by gosh, she's going to take care of that. I suppose she's just going to go full-blown fascist and start dictating what prices businesses can charge you, because that's the only solution if you have her perspective. If her perspective is, I'm going to fix it, and the problem is businesses are setting the prices too high in order to screw you over, there's only one solution from that perspective, and that is to decide what businesses can charge for goods and services, which is fascism. The junk fee thing is also hilariously insignificant, but at the same time, fixing a problem that they are largely responsible for. The junk fees, they talk about, if you overdraw oftentimes. Now, there's different variations of junk fees, but oftentimes, when it comes to credit cards, these, interest rates, or if you overdraw your bank account and, they charge you $30. Well, that's just too much. Well, increasingly, people find themselves in those positions because of this administration's economic policies. Not to mention, if you have the single mom of two that is scaling back on grocery shopping, like that really makes a difference. Oh, you're going to go after my bank because they charge me an overdraft fee of $12. Because I can no longer afford to pay for groceries because of your inflationary policies. Gee whiz, thank you. So be prepared that the entire economic policy message from the Kamala Harris campaign is going to be it's the fault of other Americans. Because obviously she can't say it's her fault. She can't say it's Biden's fault. She can't say it's the fault of the Democrats. So it's got to be your fault as an American who creates jobs in this country. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. KSGF.com. If you miss any of the show, we have the on-demand section. Spotify also, and you can watch the show. That thanks to the good people at Springfield Raps who designed the KSGF studio. Also at KSGF.com, you can get signed up for Godfather's Pizza Party And let's see, there is the PBR Thunder Days coming up, Local for Less Ozark. That is underway now. You don't have to wait until Friday in order to take this deal. Only $25 gets you a $50 ticket for the Friday, August 30th date. Tickets are in section DD, rows 12 through 15. That, again, ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we will see rain throughout the morning. It'll clear up around noon, and then we will immediately go into a heat advisory. We'll see a high near 90 and heat index values reaching as high as 100. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 73. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and hot with a high near 95. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 92.
I was waving on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Got a text message on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line saying, hey, just switched over to YouTube, looking good.
Nice.
Oh, thank you very much. That's true.
You got a good looking shirt on today.
I've never worn this. It was in my closet, and I just thought, I'll wear this shirt today.
There you go.
I've never worn this shirt. I don't know how long I've had it. I need to go through my things. I, like so many people, I'm sure, maybe 5% of what I have I actually wear.
Yeah, I do that too.
There are things that I don't know. You get in these patterns, but I have a hard time getting rid of some of the other stuff because it's, quality stuff, and I just need to do it. And this would have been one of those shirts normally,
There,
but
there
now
you
I've
go.
worn
Well,
it.
it looks great.
I've worn. Thank you very much. It's very bright blue.
It is.
Peter Doocy yesterday commenting on Kamala Harris dodging the press pool as she is on the run from the media that at the same time is campaigning on her behalf. And I wanted to play for you audio of Doocy and then a roll of audio of Kamala Harris answering questions about when she's going to, maybe campaign a little.
We're being told by the vice president that if we want to know what she thinks about current events or where she stands on the issues, we do have to wait a little bit longer.
I expect you to roll out your policy platform next week, and it'll be focused on the economy and what we need to do to bring down costs and also strengthen the economy.
All right, so that's Doocy explaining that the vice president is saying that if we want to know what she thinks about what's going on in the world today, like Israel right now, I mean, you look at the fact that we have, we've been given a little bit more assistance in the last 12, 24 hours to Israel in terms of weapons because of what is seen as potentially the impending large-scale attack against Israel by Iran, which we have unfortunately made financially possible during the Biden administration. And we're making moves with military assets to support them if we need to militarily get involved. This is what we're hearing, not from Biden and not from Kamala Harris. If we want to know her thoughts on this, we have to wait. Just wait a week or two. She'll let us know. If I understand people that hate Trump, and honestly, I can even understand in certain capacities how that hatred continues to get fueled. Like, you already don't like him, and then you hear him say certain things, and I think to myself, if I did not like Trump, if I were, just a Democrat or whatever, the things that he would say would definitely inflame that hatred. The way that he says things, I understand that. But what I can't comprehend is ultimately that when it really comes down to it, and you're trying to decide, when we are on the brink of World War III, when we are dealing with countries that have that openly, we know this is occurring, they are freeing up their prisons and as Trump notes, insane asylums, which he's noted is different than a mental institution. It's worse. Those people are even worse. And they are doing this. I mean, this isn't a secret. This is happening. That, all of these things that are occurring. If Kamala Harris does not feel comfortable even sitting down with the press that is trying to help her get elected, what do you think she is going to be able to do when dealing with these situations, when dealing with Putin, when dealing with China or North Korea or all of these countries that she actually traveled to, some of them in South America, to try and deal with the, quote, source of the illegal immigration problem? She's had a crack at that. We saw how that's gone. I mean, what? Do you stop and think about the real-life implications of these things? When you listen to her also, you've seen, I'm sure, these different memes or videos, tell me that you lied on your resume without telling me you lied on your resume. And, it's somebody, or sometimes it's an animal, that is failing miserably at what it is that instinctually they're supposed to be able to do. It's just a complete dumpster fire. And so that's become a real popular meme. When you listen to Kamala, she sounds like somebody who got hired for a job she's not qualified for, and she keeps putting off her responsibilities. Here she's being asked, she is currently vice president. She is running to be president of the United States. She's not unveiled any plans whatsoever. She's not said anything that she's actually going to do. And then the media, and, this is just like, does she not have any? Is this catch-up work? Is this like, oh, we've got to figure something out? I'm somebody who's been vice president, and I don't really have any sort of clue whatsoever, so I need a few weeks to come up with something? When she's asked by the press, hey, as she did there, that audio that rolled after Peter Doocy, and she's asked by a journalist, are you going to reveal any of your policy positions, any of your plans? And just even the way that she pauses there, you replay the audio, to me, she sounds like somebody, she's just started a job, and with that job, in the first few weeks, she's expected to put together some reports. She's expected to, okay, what is your 6-month vision for the company at this point? And she is so in over her head, she doesn't even know where to start. And I think of a person in that position, and this is the sort of response you get.
We have to wait a little bit longer.
Expect you to roll out your policy platform next week, and it'll be focused on the economy and what we need to do to bring down costs and also strengthen the economy.
I mean, doesn't it sound like that?
Yeah.
She's like, next week? Yeah, next week. We'll have it next week.
What day?
Right.
What time can we
I mean,
expect it?
and you have a bit of a leeway there. You're new, and they're like, well, okay. I think back to the episode of Seinfeld where Kramer starts working in that. He and some of the other, I forget, maybe Jerry, I don't know who it was, but they're in some building. He stops off to use the restroom, and he ends up walking into a board meeting and then ends up just working there, even though he doesn't actually work there, and he's given these assignments, and he has no idea what he's doing whatsoever. And that's what she seems like. And so you hire this person, and she's been, quote, hired to run as president. She was not elected to run as president in the Democrat election system. That all was just a big hoax. And so she was hired in order to run as president. And so they're beginning to say, okay, so what's the plan here? Like, well, it's like every time it's a new hire, new management of the company, and you're going in, you're above her, you're just her boss, and she's not in her office. Where is she? Well, I think she went to lunch, and okay, when's she going to be? Supposed to be back at 1. Like 2:30, you go back by her office. She's not there. Well, she had to go do this. And like, you can't ever pin her down. You finally do come, she walks by in the hallway on her way out, and you're asking her, hey, those policy proposals, is that something that, kind of expecting that by now? Have you, oh yeah, no, I'll have it next week. Don't worry. Okay. That's exactly how she's behaving. I think that some Americans get so caught up in their emotional hatred for Donald Trump. And some people just get caught up in, they don't necessarily hate him, but they just want to feel good. They just want, they want to choose somebody that makes them think that, well, I just don't have to worry about anything right now. They'll take care of it. It's going to be fine. That they forget we are talking about the presidency, the president of the United States. We are talking about somebody that is going to be responsible if that 3 a.m. call comes and we're getting reports that nuclear missiles are headed towards the coast, or that a dirty bomb is about to go off in New York City or Washington, D.C., and we have people captured who aren't giving, you think about, and I'm giving scenarios that you just think of as worst case scenarios, but odds are talking about some black swan moment, which is something that we can never even comprehend or imagine because it's unlike anything we've ever seen. And that this is a woman who isn't even running for president, who is talking as if she got hired for a position in which she lied on her resume, keeps avoiding the boss, and when finally confronted with, hey, do you have those reports that, needed those about a week ago? Oh, no, I'll have them next week. Don't worry about it. I mean, this is dangerous territory that we're in here. Meanwhile, there's a poll that shows like a significant number of Americans will vote for whomever Taylor Swift endorses. I mean, that's just fantastic, isn't it? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Kamala reminds me of Kramer when he got the job at the office, carried the briefcase, simply had no idea what he was even doing. And when asked, he said, well, I don't even really work here. That is one of the best scenes. Have you seen that episode? Do you watch? I don't even know if you watch Seinfeld or if you ever did.
Well, so I kind of started binge watching it and
Yeah.
I stopped. So, yeah, I need to go back and watch it.
I want to say he got, I forget why Kramer, he just, if I remember right, they were in this office building in this skyscraper, and he ends up, I think, just going into, he's looking for a restroom, and they're all going into, we're like, come on. He's like, oh, okay. But he has to come up with these reports, and he has no idea what he's doing. And so he's in for his supervisor, has him in the office, and he's reading through them, and he comments, he goes, he talks about how he's very confused by the report, he can't make sense of it, and he says, it's almost like you have no idea what you're doing, or something along those lines. And Kramer's like, well, I don't even really work here, and he goes, well, that's what makes this so hard, because he's firing them. That's what Kamala Harris is right now. I've never seen anything like it. There were accusations, and I think rightfully so, that Obama did not really have a leadership background, but he had done something. You know, he had run and become a state senator. He had failed in a run for a congressional seat. Interestingly enough, the person who won was actually backed by the Clintons. They campaigned for his opposition. He would end up winning the U.S. Senate seat, I believe largely, if I remember correctly, by having political opposition, his strong political opposition, thrown off the ballot. This is why we see this increasingly occur as a ploy by the Democrats. It's something that Obama brought to the table with his presidency. And but people could at least, well, he was a community organizer, and which was laughable in the minds of many people. But Kamala just genuinely seems like she's never actually done anything. And you can understand, I suppose, to some degree, why so many people who leave under her whenever she's running in an office like the vice presidency, and they talk about the toxic environment, the chaos, just, there's no real direction. And she just seems incapable, and some of it may be total insecurity, but incapable of actually making these decisions. I'm not sure if she's insecure, what the situation is. We don't know behind the scenes. But when you sound like that new hire that lied on your resume, and you're being asked by the press, much like a new hire, hey, do you have those plans yet, those reports? You have your proposals? That's something that we've needed for some time. And she's like, she even said before she responded. Yeah, I'll have that in a week, and it'll be stuff about the economy. And she's BSing. You can tell she's just totally BSing. And I suspect this is what's going on. She is not going to have a hand in any of these policies. That whatever proposals that there are, if there are any, they may just be vague. With the economy, for example, it's evil corporations price gouging, and there's no real plan or policy. Or if there is, she's having some of her people that are these left-wing activists that she has hired on as campaign advisors or policy advisors just to come up with something for her. I don't believe that she is capable of coming up with anything that is meaningful, positive or negative, in any capacity. And I think that we're seeing the realities of that. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. There is, in all likelihood, strategy to the Harris campaign doing everything they can to not campaign, to just let the media campaign for them, and to not put out any specific policy proposals. It is very likely, hopefully for the country, that the vacuous excitement that has been ginned up by the media and reflected in the polls will not last till Election Day. The question is, how far will it last? it is beneficial to the Kamala Harris campaign to recognize, okay, it probably won't last forever, but to drag it out as long as possible, because early voting in a number of swing states starts in just a couple, 3 weeks, September 6th. You've got ballot by mail, you've got early voting, you've got ballot harvesting taking place. September 6th, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, or September 16th is Pennsylvania, the 17th, Georgia, September 19th, Wisconsin, September 20th, Arkansas, Minnesota, South Dakota, Virginia, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia. September 21st. I mean, we're talking over a month before the actual election. Alabama, Alaska, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Kansas, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Hampshire, New York, Oregon, South Carolina, Washington, Indiana, New Mexico, Maryland, New Jersey. Mississippi on the 23rd, along with Oregon, Vermont. So you can see the benefit to the Harris campaign to try and put off what is potentially the inevitable drop-off of enthusiasm as long as possible, because they don't have to make it to the actual election day, because every day past September 6th is a day that they are able to get people to the polls, or get people in different states. It varies in the form in which they can cast their ballots, whether it's mail-in or actual in-person. But mark my words, they are going to be out in full force, because they recognize that odds are, particularly after the convention, that probably there's no more upswing for her. It is going to either level off or come down from there. And so this is, again, why the Democrats love this early voting stuff, because they can hide for a long period of time, and they can get some of that early voting while there is still excitement for them. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Kamala Harris unveiled over the weekend that she was plagiarizing from part of Trump's economic plans to eliminate taxes on tipping. Something that when Trump announced it, outlets like CBS News had in the headlines that it would cost $250 billion. This was according to nonpartisan analysis. The headline from the same CBS outlet, when Kamala announced the same plan, noted that she was fighting for hardworking Americans. Much different presentation there. Even if, however, she were to get elected president and follow through implementing Trump's tax policy when it comes to those that make tips, she would offset it by increases on payroll taxes. The Washington Examiner reporting that Vice President Kamala Harris is on record calling for raising payroll taxes on workers. Further evidence that middle-class households will pay higher taxes if Kamala Harris is elected president. This is aside from the continued inflation. The presumptive Democratic presidential nominee personally authored a post on Medium during her 2020 presidential bid endorsing the creation of 2 additional tax increases, payroll taxes, as part of her Medicare for All plan. In her plan, she proposes a 7.5% payroll tax on employers and a 4% payroll tax on households with a combined income of over $100,000 to be directly withheld from an employee's paycheck, accounting for existing payroll taxes. Harris's plan would mean that a household earning $100,000 or more would now pay a total combined rate of 26.8% in federal payroll taxes, which is a massive increase from the current combined payroll tax rate of 15.3%. So you're talking about an over 10% increase in payroll taxes. If you notice, this is under $400,000. She's targeting people under $400,000. That is something that has been, as false as it is, the benchmark for raising taxes by the Biden-Harris campaign that, no one under $400,000 will see their taxes go up. Of course, it wasn't true, but that is the benchmark they use. Kamala now at $100,000. But here's what needs to be understood, and I know many of you do understand this. That money comes from somewhere. The more that it costs a business to exist, the less money that business has for things like employees. Kamala Harris, who I expect next week is going to blame inflation on the greedy business owner, has an economic plan to cost businesses even more, a 10% plus increase in payroll taxes. That money has to come from somewhere. Somebody like Kamala Harris, who's never really been in the private sector, may not understand. It's not like the federal government who just prints more money. Hey, we've got the printing machines. Look at that. Businesses get money from the customer. That's where their money comes from. The money that they pay the electric bill comes from the customer. When you purchase the good or service, you are paying for everything that the business has to pay for. You are paying for insurance. You are paying for regulatory cost. You are paying for the electricity. You're paying for the gas. You are paying for the products themselves. You are paying for the employees, which is why whenever minimum wage is artificially increased by the government, the cost of products go up, or the size of the product or service gets diminished, or people begin losing their jobs. And sometimes the entire business has to collapse because the margins were so tight anyhow, they cannot sustain the increased cost of existing. To have as part of an economic policy to further punish businesses. And let's understand, When it comes to the businesses that are not going to be able to survive in terms of size, it is the business at the bottom. In other words, it's the small business owner. The big, massive corporations that increasingly love the Democrat Party and pour money into their campaigns in order to help them win, they are able to manage through these sorts of increases. Part of the reason, because their smaller competitors eventually go out or they sell to them, so they increase the customer base because a number of options that are available to the customer diminishes. People who tend to vote, and you know who else this doesn't impact? The rich Hollywood elites that continue to throw fundraisers for Kamala Harris. Do you think payroll tax matters to them? The people talking about the end of democracy as we know it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't have an impact on their lives in the same way that it does you. When you lose your job, you see your paycheck diminished. You find out that you can't get that raise because of the increased cost of doing business due to Kamala Harris's tax policies. And that's just that one tax. I think that there are people who still willfully choose to believe that it's this weird contradiction, because on one hand, the left acts like this, that Kamala Harris is going to be the most amazing thing ever and awesome and everything's going to be wonderful under her. But then they don't listen to what few things she said in the past she's going to do. And they think that, well, that's not really, they just detach themselves from what that will do. And then when things go wrong, well, that's not her fault. And we know this is going to be the reaction because this is exactly what they say about the Biden-Harris policies that have led us to where we are. It's not their fault. There's nothing they can do about it. Oh, is that what you ran on? Because I guarantee you, while Kamala Harris is out there and she's going to be campaigning on as if she hasn't been part of this administration for the past 3.5 years, she will be telling you she's going to make things better. What she's not going to tell you is that when things don't get better, she's going to say it's not her fault, there's nothing she can do about it. But that is what she will say if she's elected president, and that's what the media will say, and that's what her supporters will say, because that's what they always say. Weather in a moment, latest news update now.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have rain throughout the morning, clearing up around noon, and then we will immediately go into a heat advisory for the entire listening area. We'll see a high around 90 and heat index values reaching close to 100. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 73. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 92.
All right, so the media, we know that they have spent the last 3 weeks campaigning for Kamala Harris, how wonderful, how great she is, and how she has no responsibility whatsoever for any of the responsibilities she had in the current White House. It's a clean slate, completely recreated, brand new, blank canvas, and they are crafting her for us. And so when you watch the media and you see a lot of it is illusion. You know, they'll show some of these rallies, and what they don't focus on is, one, the fact that oftentimes these people are coming to see a concert before the rally. And while a significant portion of the people do stay, a lot of them leave, but some do stay. But they did not come to see Kamala Harris. They came to see some sort of artist. And that there are images that others will post in which, you know, again, the media will do a tighter shot, and it looks as if it's an arena filled with people, but when you see the full arena, only about a quarter of it's actually filled. And we saw this with the Hillary Clinton campaign as well, and this is something, not the concert thing so much, but the tight shots to take out of context what is really going on there in terms of enthusiasm. And I believe what many of us do is we watch this and we recognize other people see it, and so we fear people will be swayed by that. We fear that people will see this occurring and think, oh, this is wonderful, and things are becoming more wonderful, things are getting better. But what we do at the same time need to recognize is that the people who, on a daily basis, are going to the grocery store are still not feeling better. NBC News sat down with a panel of black voters in Philadelphia, and one of the women who was part of the discussion talked about the difficulties of the economy.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
What do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't, but I have to go work.
The media can create as much of an illusion as they want, but it doesn't change the reality of what is going on with the average person in this country. Claiming that Kamala, putting a pretty picture of Kamala Harris on the cover of a magazine, portraying her as creating all of this excitement, which it's not her creating the excitement, it's the media that's creating the excitement, does not take away the economic realities that the average American is dealing with. Now, the challenge here is, and that this is the goal of the two sides, or what should be. Now, what we know the media is trying to do is paint Kamala Harris as someone new that has nothing to do with the current economy. They are wanting to create her in the minds of Americans as somebody who can fix this problem because she wasn't part of the current problem. They want you to believe that she has had nothing to do with anything that's going on because they recognize that the two issues in which the American people are most angry and upset about and concerned about are the issues that she has had a hand in. One, of course, the border that she was put in charge of, and we've seen them try and rewrite that history, but also the economic policy. She's been right there. Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday said when it comes to these policies, there is no light between Biden and Harris. They are on the same page fully. Joe Biden, speaking outside the White House, he answered a few questions in which, once again, he claimed that Donald Trump was a danger to democracy. But when it came to the economic policy, saying to Kamala Harris, these are her policies as well. We're on the same page here. So the challenge that the Trump campaign has, and Republicans have, in the face of the attempts of the media to disconnect Kamala Harris from what we've been going through, is to make sure people remember and understand that connection. This is obviously where you increasingly hear Trump supporters acknowledging Trump needs to focus, and he needs to focus on the economy and the border and, crime and some of these other issues, but those need to be the overriding themes. But when it comes to the economy, it needs not just be the economy, because people know that. People know the economy's bad. Overwhelming majority of people say that we're headed in the wrong direction. But when you see polling that shows, 40% of people think Kamala might be the best one to handle this economy. This is her economy. And so the Trump campaign's focus needs to not only be on, or not be on the economy's bad, because everyone knows that, but drilling away, this is Kamala's economy. And if you want more of the same, if you're happy with where we are, if you are happy with your economic situation, when it comes to your insurance, when it comes to your car payments, when it comes to your rent, this is what the Harris campaign is. They have been, she and Biden, these are their policies, and if you want 4 more years of this, might as well just let Biden in there. That's what needs to really be drilled down, because that woman, she's not just anecdotal. She is symbolic of what the vast majority of Americans are feeling. That is the reality. The challenge that Democrats were having with Biden in there is that, the media could not separate Biden from that. They tried. But Biden, of course, and Kamala are out there talking about Bidenomics, Bidenomics, Bidenomics. So they infused Biden with the economy to such a degree they could not escape it. But that's what the media is trying to help Kamala do, give her the escape chute so that she's not, so I don't know, you could start calling it Kamala-omics or whatever. But just making sure that people are not forgetting that she has been part of this. And she's bragged, this is Bidenomics, and it is working. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Further demonstrating that everything regarding the Harris-Walz campaign is fake and manufactured. Axios has a story. Harris campaign's Google ads rewrite news headlines. Screenshots of Harris for President ads within the Google Ads library are posted in the article. And the Axios story, which is left-wing, notes that the Harris campaign has been editing news headlines and descriptions within Google search ads that make it appear as if outlets like The Guardian, Reuters, CBS News, and other major publishers are on her side. So this is what, we're told is disinformation. This is what we're told. This is why the Biden administration needs to censor information because of stuff like this. Now, of course, it isn't the Trump campaign doing this. In fact, Axios reached out to Google and they said, yeah, the Trump campaign is not doing this. It is just the Harris campaign. Axios writes, according to Google's Ad Transparency Center, the Trump campaign is not running these types of deceptive ads. The ads say that they are sponsored, and you may have, you could see the little thing underneath it that says ad. It's a little translucent oftentimes. It doesn't necessarily stand out. They note that while the ad has that notation they are sponsored, it's not immediately clear that the text that accompanies real news links is written by the campaign and not by the media publication itself. A Guardian spokesperson, one of the media outlets that has had their headline changed by the campaign to falsely mislead people into believing that the headline says something that it doesn't, says, quote, while we understand why an organization might wish to align itself with the Guardian's trusted brand, we need to ensure it's being used appropriately and with our permission. We'll be reaching out to Google for more information about this practice. Spokespeople for brands such as CNN, USA Today, and NPR, who have also had their headlines manipulated by the Harris campaign, said that they were unaware their brand was being featured in this way. Google said the ads don't violate its rules, but platforms have in the past wrestled with whether this type of format can spread misinformation. Well, it isn't spreading disinformation. It is straight up misinformation. You see, anything and everything that might be beneficial to Donald Trump, without asking any questions whatsoever, remove it. And then allow the Trump people to fight it. But if it is clear and deliberate disinformation being spread by the Harris campaign, well, it's a real struggle. What should we do here? It's just really a struggle to figure out, is this disinformation? We don't really know. A source familiar with the Harris campaign's ads team said the campaign buys search ads with news links to give voters searching for information about Vice President Harris more context, and that they've complied with the rules, and I'm sure that they have. Because if you are a Democrat, see, things such as disinformation and misinformation is up for interpretation, which, of course, is the Orwellian way that the left is able to rule in a tyrannical manner, because then they get to decide whether something is disinformation or misinformation. And if you come along and point out something that also is disinformation in your assessment, they are the ones who ultimately get to decide whether or not you're telling the truth. So like everything else with this campaign, now they are taking news headlines and they are changing them. And, as I mentioned, Axios has a number of examples. Here's an AP News headline. It wasn't their headline, but the Harris campaign changed it to say, VP Harris's economic vision, lower cost and higher wages. Another one, USA Today, that was rewritten by the Harris campaign to look as if it's a USA Today headline, Tim Walz military service, 24 years in the National Guard. Reuters, simply they rewrote it to say, inflation is down. I don't know that there's a single thing since the announcement of the overturning of the Biden election and the anointing of Kamala Harris as the nominee that has been authentic. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see rain throughout the morning, but it'll clear up around noon, and then we immediately will go into a heat advisory until 9 p.m. We'll see a high near 90 and heat index values reaching close to 100. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 73. For Thursday, mostly sunny and hot with a high near 95. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 92.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, guided us from house prep to close. Her knowledge helped us sell our house fast and for more money. The process went smoothly. If you are needing to buy or sell your home, give her a call. Now, they mention help us sell our house fast. To a lot of people, if you ever sold your home and you've had a traditional realtor, that may mean giving you advice just on, well, maybe you should plant some flowers, or well, you ought to rake the leaves and maybe put out some candles, and we'll, be out here to show some people your home. We'll do an open house. But it's so much more with Emily Johnson. Now, you may not require a lot, but, she's relayed stories. One, in fact, it was a family who was selling the home, ended up, I think it was Japan, that they moved. It was out of country, and somebody was supposed to do a lot of the home prep for them to get the house ready, and it just ended up not happening. And she is the one who took care of all that for them. That is what you get with her. You get not the minimum. You don't even get maximum. You get above and beyond the maximum that you normally get from a realtor. So if that's what you want when it comes to home buying and home selling, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I wanted to play for you some audio from CNN polling analysis. And now this is presented by Harry Eaton, and he's looking at some of the polls that are a little deeper, if you will, than just the, here's this state, here's that state, here's national. And his warning here is to Kamala Harris supporters, don't pop the champagne quite yet. And here's his analysis.
I want to take a step back and sort of point out we've kind of been here before. So August 13th, how far were the polls off in Michigan, Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin? And this is in 2016 and 2020. Trump was estimated both times around and by significant margins. Take a look here. In 2016, the average poll in those states that I mentioned, those Great Lake battleground states, Trump was underestimated by 9 points on average at this point in 2016. How about 2020? It wasn't a one-off. Look at this. He was underestimated by 5 points on average. And of course, Kamala Harris's advantage in those New York Times Siena College polls were 4 points in each of these key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. The bottom line is this. If you have any idea, if you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to rip open the champagne bottle, pop that cork, do not do it. Donald Trump is very much in this race. If we have a polling shift like we've seen in prior years from now until the final result, Donald Trump would actually win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that he is very much in this ballgame based upon where he is right now, and compare that to where he was in prior years.
We certainly heard the Harris campaign saying we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely.
This is definitely not over. All right. Let's talk about enthusiasm and how that translates actually. We are quite a ways out, again, 3 months about.
Yeah, yesterday I was mentioning, the enthusiasm for the Democratic ticket was up. Yeah. But that enthusiasm is not the same thing as going out to actually vote. And there's a different question, which essentially says, how certain are you actually going to go out and vote? And this is the top range. Almost certain to vote. Again, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. Look at this. Look at Kamala Harris now compared to where Joe Biden was back in May. In fact, 62% of Joe Biden voters said they were almost certain to turn out and vote. Now,
it's gone down.
It's actually gone down a little bit. I would call this in the same general area at 61%. But it's basically unchanged. And look at Donald Trump. He was at 58% in May. He's actually gone up a little bit now. He's at 60% now. Again, basically no real change. So the bottom line here is, yes, there may be more enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, but the fact is we're not seeing that necessarily translate in the almost certain vote. And one little other note, Sarah, I will note this. Donald Trump is more popular today than he was on August 13th in either 2020 or 2016. So the bottom line is, yes, Kamala Harris is doing better in the polls, but there's a long way to go. The polls can shift. The almost certain to vote hasn't actually shifted, and Donald Trump is more popular than he was at either 2016 or 2020 at this point.
All right. So this is, I think, some interesting analysis, and it asks a lot of questions that aren't necessarily answered. Now, first, We're talking about polls here. And as I've noted, when it comes to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, just the polling itself, I don't believe, odds are, what is going to be occurring on Election Day, though for a lot of states that starts in a couple of weeks, those I don't think that they are going to hold steady. They may, but I don't know that they will. And so, okay, we can look at them and analyze them, but that is not indicative of what is going to be happening come Election Day, necessarily. It has been of course, we all know that polls have been inaccurate, and he's noting here that when it came to Donald Trump and a lot of these states in which Kamala Harris right now is polling up, that in the past, the underestimation that the polls indicated for Trump, if you figure that in, it shows that actually the reality is that he would beat Kamala in those states that she's polling ahead, if it stayed consistent with 2016 and 2020. Many have felt that polling has, for reasons unknown, gotten more accurate because of what has happened with a number of primaries across the country. And when it came to the presidential race and just a lot of other races as well. But I think that there's a difference in polling when it comes to a primary and it comes to a general election. I think in a primary, people are more likely to be honest. And if you do, and for just a number of different reasons. Also, if media outlets are, even if it's just for their own sanity or because they want to impact the outcome of an election, if you do have media outlets that are going to weigh things or tilt things a little bit in order to look better for the Democrat in a general election, they're probably not going to do that in a primary. They don't have that sort of vested interest when it comes to a primary election. And so there is less reason to, on average, try and manipulate the polls in a primary. So point being is, the last real number of elections that we've had in a primary state, of course, the Democrat won. That's a whole different story. But in terms of Republicans, that has shown that the polls have been much more accurate. But I don't believe that that means overall that polling has gotten better or whatever problems have existed in the past couple of cycles no longer exist. I think that it just many of the reasons for the inaccuracy in polling in a general election may not exist in primaries. The part of the analysis that Harry Enton from CNN did here regarding enthusiasm, and all the enthusiasm's up, but noted that a percentage point less of voters said that they actually planned on going out and voting for Kamala versus Biden. So that it's really unchanged. And I think that this is probably confusing to a lot of analysts, Democrats, Republicans. Why is, with her enthusiasm up, but when it comes down to, okay, are you actually going to make it to the polls to vote for her, that isn't moving much. The segment of the population that is giving Kamala Harris the boost right now are young people. And young people are, generally speaking, relatively speaking, much less, what's the best word here to use? Committed to anything. They are, and as you get older, that changes, of course. It's long been known that people who are elderly are the most committed voters, but the young people are the less committed. So, you can have young people like, oh, this is very exciting, I love it, but they may not actually go out to vote. There was an article a couple of years ago that I had shared with you, and it was about this study that was done, research. There was a particular county in which they found that there was a disproportionately high number of people that requested absentee ballots to mail in, but they weren't getting mailed in. And they found it was particularly younger people because they knew who requested them and they knew the age of the people who requested them. And so what they found is that younger people, and it was one particular district or county or part of a state, and I don't remember, Democrat, Republican, but what they found is that the younger the people got, the more likely they were to request an absentee ballot but not mail it in. So they sought out to figure out why. And the leading reason was that they didn't know where to buy a stamp. Or they didn't know if they had to drop it off at a post office or actually drop it off at an election place. They didn't know where to do it. But stamps were a big one. They didn't know where to buy one. Now, you and I think, well, that's easy to figure out. But that's an extra step. And increasingly, younger people, any additional steps or effort they have to put into something, even if it's something that they are kind of excited about because it's pop culture-y, and there's, all sorts of TikTok videos and everything, they just won't do it. I mean, you can call it lazy, you can call it lack of commitment, you can call it what you want, but there is a reality there, and that has been increasingly true, and I suspect that is what potentially could be creating a mirage for the Democrats right now, is they see this increase in excitement and enthusiasm. It's among the younger population. The younger they are, the more likely there is to be that increase in enthusiasm. But the trouble for that campaign is that that is the demographic that is least likely to translate enthusiasm into actual action, which of course is why they are going to, starting day one in every one of the states where early voting is possible, they're going to do everything they can to ballot harvest. They are, if they're smart, and I'm sure that they are, they're going to target those young people, and they are going to do everything they possibly can in order to get those ballots collected, to get those people out to the polls, because they recognize that, that's a percentage of the people that more than any other say they'll vote the way Taylor Swift tells them to vote. And they like Kamala Harris. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. There's an outfit, Redfield Wilton Strategies, and they did a poll on behalf of Newsweek in order to determine what segment of Generation Z, Gen Zers, which in today's environment is gauged as people between the age of 12 and 27. So voting age, 18 to 27-year-olds. And what if any portion of those individuals would vote simply based off what a famous person told them how to vote? Not off policy, not off whether we're better off 4 years ago than we are today. None of that. Whether somebody that is famous that they like tells them, here's how I want you to vote, and they will just do it because they're told to. The poll showed that 34% of Gen Zers are significantly more likely to go out to the ballot box and vote for whomever Taylor Swift tells them to vote for, specifically Taylor Swift. Now, a solid majority of Gen Zers admitted in the polling that they would be swayed by a famous person telling them how to vote. A majority. I mean, is it any wonder we continue to see Democrats pushing to lower the voting age in this country? When over half of them admit that they will vote for whomever the rich, famous person tells them to vote, and we know overwhelmingly the uber-rich, famous people back the Democrat Party. So you can understand why they're constantly trying to lower that voting age. You think about the entire in this country, every person under the age or 27 and under who is able to vote, a majority of them say this. 38% say if Taylor Swift tells me to vote for somebody, I'll vote for that person. That's what matters. 40% said that they would vote however Beyonce tells them to vote. To some degree, you understand that particularly there are certain divisions within any political party. It's all about recruitment. It's all about get as many votes as you can. But you think at some point there would be some embarrassment as to what drives people to pick you over your opposition. And when a majority of a demographic, which includes millions and millions of Americans, will vote for you because Taylor Swift told them to or Beyonce told them to or some other celebrity. They don't care whether their livelihood is improved. They don't care whether their children or their future children will live in a better country than they did. That doesn't matter. And that is a significant portion of your voting base. You would think there would be some concern there, some self-reflection. You and I, we think, how out of touch are these people? While you continue to see interviews with the people come out that support Trump or Republicans, and they're construction workers, they're, in the service industry, they're hardworking people. They're normal, hardworking people. This is why Frank Luntz was talking about never in the time that he's been doing polling since the late 80s has he ever seen average blue-collar union workers so vocal about the fact that they are bucking the endorsements of their union and they're supporting Donald Trump. He says he's never seen anything like it before. And so we see that, we recognize that, and it seems so tone deaf for Democrats to constantly be using celebrities. But when margins are as close as they are, and when a majority of voters under the age of 27 say that's how they decide how to vote, how a celebrity tells them to, you can understand why it is that the Democrats use uber-wealthy celebrities to tell people how to vote. Because even for them, it's not about policy. It's not about what's great for the country. It's about getting as many votes as possible, whatever it takes. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, we had some pretty severe storms roll through the listening area yesterday and earlier this morning. Did you get that one from this morning?
No.
Man.
No.
Yeah.
It must have gone north of us.
Well, it was, so I'm going to assume that it was probably the eastern portion of your gutters. They'll also do an attic inspection and check your decking as well. And they take photos and videos so you can see exactly what they are seeing. And then they work through the best solution for you and your home, whether it be a simple roof repair or maybe a whole new roof. And then they work through that insurance process with you. And they just try to make the entire roofing process as simple as possible. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid team under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Coming up, there is additional information about Kamala's running mate Walz, including video that's resurfaced in which he unleashed National Guard and law enforcement on law-abiding citizens as they roamed through. He had curfews imposed, and it's surreal. It is the sort of thing that you would think you would see happening in, just some war-torn country. Also, there is video that has surfaced of him. There was this pro-Hitler Nazi chick or guy, I don't know if it's a chick or a guy, that there were rumors that he was a supporter of, and of course they denied it. Well, video has popped up of him introducing this person and talking about just, how brilliant this individual is and so forth. And it really should come as no surprise. Now, it sort of makes sense why Kamala tapped him to try and win over the anti-Semitic wing of the party. So we've got all that and more in the upcoming hour. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com, YouTube as well. You can watch us there. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447-KSGF. Our author of the week coming up tomorrow, just around this time. Sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Gretchen Wohlert, and she's got a book, The Magic and Mayhem of Donald Trump, and she does comparisons to Abraham Lincoln and sort of an analysis of why Trump is the way that he, and why that works and so forth. And well, it just seems like a really good time to talk with someone who spent 4 years analyzing all of that, taking a look-see and what it all means, especially as increasingly you have people that are supporters of Trump that are gently, publicly saying he needs to focus. And I think that's because there's a recognition there that that is what helps. They saw if Trump as a candidate was annoyed at hearing people say that he needs to focus and be a little more disciplined, he really did himself a disservice with winning that debate against Joe Biden, because what people saw was him do just that. Or some of that was the rules that were set up, the microphones being cut off, and so he was forced to not do the things that are a turnoff to a lot of people. And that combined, of course, with Biden hanging himself and Trump not drawing attention away from that by being what many people consider to be Trump-like, it just completely caused that to collapse, that campaign to collapse. And people, I think, are hoping, like, if I'm the Kamala Harris people, I'd be like, keep the microphones open. Let Trump talk all he wants. Let him talk over that, because that would benefit her. And I think that there is increasing frustration amongst a lot of folks that are very supportive and desperately want Trump to win, that he seemingly is not focusing on the things that matter to the average American person. And they're very concerned that if he does lose, it could be because of his approach on this thing. So the author of this book about his approach and why it has worked in the past and comparisons to Lincoln and so forth, I thought that'd be a great author of the week. So that'll be coming up tomorrow, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. So abortion, as expected, is going to be on the ballot in Missouri. The measure would make abortion legal up to the point of fetal viability, which is generally considered to be around 23 or 24 weeks into pregnancy. Now, the big caveat here is that abortion at any time after fetal viability would be allowed to protect the life of the mother or physical health or mental health. Now, the mental health component here in particular is unlimited abortion anytime. I mean, if this does become part of the Constitution, the right for women to kill their own babies, that caveat of mental health of the mother is unlimited abortion. Because let me put it this way, it would be similar to when marijuana was legal for only medicinal purposes, not recreational, because everyone knew that all you had to do was find some sort of doctor or anyone that had the ability to prescribe it to say that you were stressed out, that you had anxiety. That's all it took, and then you could get marijuana because it was medicinal and it was helping you through stress, panic attacks, anxiety, help you sleep. It essentially was, with a little bit of effort, the legalization of marijuana for any purpose whatsoever. That's what this would do with abortion in the state of Missouri. Now, what you're going to see happen are the people who want this to occur are going to really tout that this is only for pre-viability. that this is only going to enshrine as a human right to kill another human being as long as it's your baby before viability. What they're not going to be touting is this mental health component. Because trust me, you're going to find plenty of people in Missouri that will be more than happy to sign off saying that mentally and emotionally speaking, having this child is going to be detrimental, therefore they can have an abortion. It needs to be understood that this is, and this will enshrine if it is passed, and because we did not have initiative petition reform in the state of Missouri passed, this is going to be much, much, much easier for the left wing to get in Missouri. So we are going to go from the first state that essentially outlawed abortion to a state in which the Constitution guarantees you can get an abortion anytime you want, as long as, it makes you sad that you're going to have the baby. And I have listened to some establishment Republicans dismiss the idea that this will ever pass because we're such a red state. They pointed to other states in which similar constitutional amendments have been successful, or like pro-life ones have failed because of left-wing money coming in. They dismiss it as, well, that's Ohio. I mean, we're much more conservative than that. No, we are not. I mean, this is a state that continues to expand spending, expand government, and pass tax cuts that are in violation of the Constitution because of the amount of the tax cuts, so they have to spread it out over 5 years. That would be the gas tax. The idea that we are governed by a political party that is run by individuals that are truly conservatives is not accurate. And I don't believe that they are going to fight this. Now, you're going to have some conservatives that fight this, but the establishment Republican Party, I don't think, and I'll put it this way, people who are pro-abortion are much more committed on the whole than people who are pro-life. Now, there are segments of the population that are extremely pro-life, and they behave in a manner that reflects that they really do recognize it as life. I mean, we just had on Brandy Meeks of the Vitae Foundation at Scramblers this past Friday about their upcoming event. There are people that are conservatives, that are Republicans, that are constitutionalists, that are very passionate about it. But I'm talking about the party apparatus as a whole. The passion that Democrats have for crafting a system in which mothers feel okay and, in fact, virtuous about killing their own children far outweighs the passion that the Republican Party has as a whole for saving those lives. At least that's demonstrated through their dedication to the cause in meaningful ways. And so I tell you, what could be very potentially the saving grace in this is that this issue is going to be on the ballot at the same time Donald Trump is. And Donald Trump being on the ballot is going to bring out a lot of people that are pro-life that may not have come out to vote in an off election, a midterm election. And so once again, we could see just Trump's existence on the ballot help the pro-life movement as he did as president of the United States. We'll see. But if you hear any Republican dismiss this as, don't worry about it, this will never pass, they are either dangerously naive or they're okay with it and they just, want to see it come and go without too much of a fight. Springfield's Talk 1041, latest news update. Oh, sorry.
Oh, way to
Sorry,
go
my
there.
fault.
The first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have rain throughout the morning, but that should clear up around noon, and then we are immediately going into a heat advisory for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. We'll see a high around 90 and heat index values close to 100. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 73. For your Thursday, sunny and hot with a high near 95, and on Friday, sunny with a high near 92.
Roofing Company Talk and Text Line, talking about abortion, and with the abortion issue that's going to be on the ballot, making a constitutional amendment in Missouri. I know this is always a fun issue. And the caveat that while it is limited to pre-viability unless of the mental and emotional health of the woman, physical health and life, that's a free pass for abortion for any time, because you're always going to be able to find some medical professional who is pro-abortion that will say, oh yeah, she's an emotional train wreck, and this will be, it's necessary for her emotional health not to have this baby, and so it could be up to 9 months. Text message noting that if the state of Missouri would have had more compassion for women like Melissa Farmer from Joplin, then I think people wouldn't have pushed so hard for this. But this should not be a decision a politician makes for a woman who desperately wanted her baby, and for medical reasons, it wasn't going to happen. So Melissa Farmer, and I think there may be some confusion in this text, was someone who it's my understanding, according to the news reports, was in dire straits. The child's life was not something that was going to be saved. And she claims that she went to Freeman Hospital in Joplin, and that because of the new ban on abortions, despite the fact that they said her life was in danger, they would not give her an abortion. Now, that abortion would have been illegal, or would have been legal, rather. The Missouri law had an exemption for the life of the mother, and according to what her claims that they acknowledged that that was the case. Now, she says that, or according to the story, that, well, they were confused by it and so forth. Well, that's on them. If as a hospital they can't figure that out, I mean, the law is straightforward. If as medical professionals you determine that the mother's life is in danger, then an abortion is legal. Now, for some reason, though, then she went to Kansas, ended up at University of Kansas Medical Center. Interestingly enough, she's suing them, but she's not suing Freeman Hospital. I suspect the reason, well, I don't know the reasons why, but all I know is that was a situation that played out between her and the hospital, not the state of Missouri, because by way of the state of Missouri, she was legally allowed to have that abortion. Secondly, the idea that that's the reason that left-wing pro-abortion activists push so hard for abortion to be enshrined in the Constitution is just in total defiance of reality. If you were to go out and ask 100 people who are pro-abortion who Melissa Farmer is, if one person knew, I'd be surprised. That is in no way, shape, or form a motivating factor for this. This is something that, I mean, this is a huge push and campaign theme for Democrats. This is something they've been doing all over the state. And so while there are many reasons to be sympathetic potentially towards someone who is in that individual person's place, though, there, like I said, conflicting stories, and you're talking about person's medical situation, so that, of course, then requires the hospital. They can't give their side of the story while the person can, and so you only hear one side of the story. There's just a lot that we don't know about that. But the idea that that's the reason for this pro-abortion push by the Democrat Party, it's not connected to reality. I thought, here's a fantastic story I wanted to share with you real quick, here. And this is up in Kansas City. Jackson County. Thousands of residents in Jackson County are frustrated as county leaders say that they will not get refunds after, as homeowners, they filed appeals in their 2023 property tax assessment because the government already spent their money. Jackson County, westernmost part of Missouri, bordering Kansas. There was an unprecedented 54,000 property owners that appealed their property evaluation last year. More than 10,000 of those appeals are still unresolved, because this is what happens when the average person tries to go up against the government. They have all the time, they have all the resources, they are never held accountable, so they can just screw the citizen over as long as they want. The county's announcement about refunds comes after the State Tax Commission ordered the county to fix the assessment errors after they were found. The Missouri State Tax Commission ordered Jackson County to cap property tax assessments at 15% increase. However, many of the residents were charged for more than that. So, in other words, you had Jackson County told you cannot increase more than 15%, the property tax assessments, and they did it anyway. And then they charged people, of course, with the threat of, we'll take away your home if you don't pay this. And the people paid it. And now that it's been determined, yes, they were charged more than they were allowed to be charged by the government. They paid it. The government's saying, oh, sorry, we already spent it. Afraid we can't pay you back for that. Oopsie daisies, our bad. One of the residents, Laura Carey, who has spent a year fighting the county over the tax increase, noted that her property tax went up 69%, which additionally caused her mortgage to increase by $500 a month, something that she notes she can't afford. She worries that she might lose her home that she raised her 5 kids in. This is the compassion of government. Full play here. She said a decision that would never have been made before now is on the table. When you're retired on a fixed income, you can't roll out some more money. You can't go to work on overtime. You have to figure out what to do. Carey hopes the State Tax Commission will hold the county accountable and enforce the tax increase at the cap of 15%. Do I expect a refund? No, but I would like to see a credit. Sure, she said. Good luck. However, county officials said homeowners who were overtaxed They fully acknowledge, yep, took more than we should have. Should not expect the problem to be fixed because the money's already been spent. County Administrator Troy Schulte said, quote, "So I want to disabuse people that there's going to get some lovely refund check because of this egregious error, because it's not going to happen." Wouldn't it be nice if there were some sort of law put in place that allowed citizens to use the same justification as government does when the roles are reversed? So in other words, if a citizen just doesn't pay or they underpay their property taxes, and then when the government comes and says, hey, you didn't pay us enough, the citizen ought to be able to say, you know what, sorry, I already spent my money. I don't have any to give you. Do you think it works that way? Of course not. They'll take your home from you. But here in Missouri, in Jackson County anyhow, you wonder what color that county is, politically speaking. They knowingly take more than they're supposed to and then say, sorry, we spent it all. You ain't getting it. You're not getting what was wrongfully taken. The true compassion of big government. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. If you have a cough, or you got an itch, some sort of rash, you go to the doctor. And they're like, oh, you got a cough. They say, oh, looks like you got a rash. Yeah, I know. I came here to figure out how to fix it, like what's causing it. There's a big difference between noting what the problem is versus what causes it. There's also a difference between having a vehicle diagnostics done when you have a problem at A1 Custom Car Care versus going to a place that can tell you what the symptom is. So your car is being a little funky. You go to one of those places. We'll do a free diagnostics. And then they plug it in. And they're like, oh, yeah, this isn't working. Now, they may not know why it's not working. It could be that particular component of your vehicle, that part of your vehicle. Could be something else. All they know is, by the way, we sell that here. You can buy it now. A1 Custom Car Care, they don't simply tell you what the symptom is. They tell you what the cause of the symptom is. That way you can fix the problem at the source. Big difference. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs. Coming up, a grandma from Minnesota speaking out about the good old Governor Walsup there during COVID, throwing her in jail for 60 days. Also, resurfaced videos showing police shooting paintballs at residents during Waltz's curfew enforcement, and Waltz praising a Hitler-supporting imam as a master teacher. Hitler had a lot to teach, didn't he?
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll have rain throughout the morning, but that should clear up around noon, and then we will go straight into a heat advisory until 9 p.m. We'll see a high near 90 and heat index values around 100. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 73. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and hot with a high near 95, and on Friday, sunny with a high near 92.
Minnesota grandma jailed for defying Walz's COVID lockdown orders, noting you do not want tyranny at this level. Those of us here in Missouri, though there were some areas, St. Louis, Kansas City, that saw the liberal tyrannical approach, and even a soft tyrannical approach here in Missouri with Parson, though he did not directly order a lot of these shutdowns. His state of emergency, whatever the designation was, allowed for a lot of those decisions to be made. One of the worst, though, was in Minnesota. I mean, we heard a lot about New York, and you saw the hypocrisy of the Gavin Newsoms and the Nancy Pelosi's, these individuals who lived by a separate set of rules while requiring the rest of us to give up our livelihoods. It's interesting, by the way, with the announcement of Walz and his tyrannical approach to dealing with COVID, having that snitch line set up, and that was used quite often in the first few days of introducing Tim Walz to the American people and how extreme he was, that he was encouraged that there was a snitch hotline. And I thought, Springfield, they were telling people to call 911. If you saw somebody that was in violation of these. They also told pre-COVID people to call 911 if they saw somebody smoking in a bar when the smoking ban passed. So I think that should give us a little insight into how left-wing Mayor McCheese and the council and even those previously serving have been in their rule over the people and the business owners in Springfield. But that aside, you got it, mother of 8, 18 grandkids. It's just one example of what living under the rule of the Minnesota governor is like. Wine and Coffee Bistro initially complied with the shutdown, ordered that March. However, the grandmother said she watched for months afterwards as Walz never fully reopened the state when it came to businesses deemed non-essential, such as bars, restaurants, gyms, dance studios, and hair salons. By contrast, the governor never, of course, shut down liquor stores, big box stores, even strip clubs. So this was what a lot of people saw as the hypocrisy. They recognized that it wasn't about health. And even if it was about health, they weren't really that serious about it, because how is it that you claim we have to shut down this grandma's bistro in order to save lives, but if you want to go and get a lap dance, that is somehow safe? So people recognize that this was not science, and it was uneven application. So she reopened, defying the shutdown from Walz, and she would be hauled off, convicted in December on misdemeanor charges, receiving the maximum sentence of 90 days and a $1,000 fine, in which she ended up serving 60 days. Quote, "This is a story America needs to hear, that Tim Walz is not some cuddly, joyful coach like all the things that the mainstream media are calling him. This is not who this man is. The man would like to take your rights away. He will take your rights away, because what happened to me could happen to everybody. What happened to me will happen to you." There's a Daily Caller story, flashback, resurfaced video shows police shooting paintballs at residents during Tim Walz curfew enforcement. A video from Minneapolis resurfaced Tuesday showing law enforcement officers enforcing a curfew in 2020 by firing paintballs at residents in their own homes. The enforcement action occurred in the days following the imposition of a stringent curfew by Tim Walz aimed at quelling the violent unrest sparked by George Floyd's death. The video shows officers aggressively shouting for residents to enter their homes. They were on their front porch. And the video, which we'll get the story up, you can watch it. It's unsettling. And you had residents that were standing on their front porch filming this because it looked like something that you would see in a war zone, where some of the stories reference that National Guard was also part of this, so I'm not sure exactly how integrated local law enforcement was with National Guard under the orders of Governor Walz. But you had people filming this because it's a surreal image that here you are and you see armed individuals marching down your streets, yelling at people to get in their homes. Now, by the way, these aren't BLM rioters that would be bailed out by Kamala Harris. These aren't people that were marching through the streets wearing masks, saying Black Lives Matter while throwing Molotov cocktails. These were law-abiding citizens standing on their front porch. And in the video, you see one officer giving the command, quote, light them up, before residents were pelted with the paintballs. Now, I don't know if these paintballs were just regular. Generally, when law enforcement has paintball guns, the paintballs have pepper spray in them. The story doesn't reference whether these were just to cause a level of discomfort to force compliance within the citizenry, or if it was done in order to incapacitate by way of pepper spray as well. So this is the mindset of this guy. Meanwhile, a story, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz praised radical imam Assad Zaman, who had posted content promoting Hitler as a master teacher, contradicting claims by the Kamala Harris campaign that Walz had absolutely no relationship with the guy whatsoever. As Breitbart News noted last week, citing reporting by Gabe Kaminsky in the Washington Examiner, Walz, quote, appeared several times with the local Muslim leader who has justified Hamas terrorist violence against Israel and once shared pro-Hitler films on social media. Walz's Muslim American Society of Minnesota also received grants from the state. In other words, free money from the taxpayers. The Kamala Harris campaign, of course, responded by saying this wasn't true. They didn't have any sort of relationship. The problem is the following video has resurfaced, and it is Governor Tim Walz standing talking. Behind him is the Hitler-praising imam.
Time we spent together, one of the things I've had the privilege of is seeing the things in life through the eye of a master teacher to try and get the understanding.
So here's Tim Walz. And oopsie daisies in the comments here. He said, in the time that I have been able to spend with the imam, which contradicts the Harris campaign's assertion that he doesn't even really know this person. They don't have any relationship. He's on video saying that I know this person really well because of all the time we spent together. And because of all the time I've spent with this person, I know that they are a master teacher. And amongst this imam's teachings is anti-Semitism and pro-Hitler film propaganda. J.D. Vance last week sat down with one of many interviews that he's doing. And Major Garrett, whomever, I forget which one of the interviews it was, the interviewer was demanding answers from J.D. Vance about the fact that years ago, Donald Trump was invited to a lunch that Proud Boys Hispanic guy who's considered a white supremacist happened to be at, and demanded answers. You think of the insanity of this. The media is still trying to paint Donald Trump as some sort of anti-Semitic racist because he was invited to a lunch that someone he didn't even know was going to be there at the time. Someone that the vast majority, not an elected official, not someone that has any sort of real impact on our country whatsoever. Meanwhile, you have the vice presidential candidate on Kamala Harris's ticket, the governor of Minnesota, that willingly, openly, in public, praises an imam that he says he has learned to appreciate the masterful teachings of this imam who teaches about how great Hitler is. That, though, we're supposed to not pay any attention to. Does that sound right? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I've got to play for you 2 bits of audio. One is a couple-minute segment of conversation about nuclear power between Elon Musk and Donald Trump during that interview that took place. Then the following day, CNN's presentation of that audio. And so you'll hear the context, which is lacking with CNN. They tried to obviously take it out of context. But you're going to hear the conversation. The conversation is talking about energy and nuclear energy and how safe it actually is, and how it is that because of a number of horrific incidents occurring, that it's gotten a bad name, but that is overblown compared to the positives that can come out of nuclear power. So this is the segment of the conversation that they had, Musk and Trump, on X the other day.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear, which is a nuclear war, very bad side. But there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation is underrated.
You're right.
And it's actually, people have this fear of nuclear electricity generation, but it's actually one of the safest forms of electricity generation. It's just a huge misunderstanding. And if you look at the injuries and deaths, caused by, say, I'm not trying to pick on coal mining, but just any kind of mining operation. Right. And there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear. Nuclear is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering. But there's so much regulation that people can't get it done. So that,
maybe they'll have to change the name. The name is it's a rough name. There are some areas like when you see what happened in
bad branding.
Right, we'll have to rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
it does have a branding problem.
When you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where they there's a lot of bad things happened, and they have a problem. And they say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. You realize it's pretty bad.
No, that's not true.
But you're right about it. It's amazing.
It's actually not that bad. So like after Fukushima happened in Japan, people were asking me in California, are we worried about like a nuclear cloud coming from Japan? I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar water treatment, a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but I mean,
I'm only kidding.
It's fine, It's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So
right.
it's really not something that
That's right.
So it's not as scary as people think, basically. But
I want to. All right. So what they're talking about there, obviously, just surmise it here before we play CNN's version of the conversation about nuclear power for electricity purposes, how it's the safest, most environmentally friendly form of it, but people get confused about it because they equate what has happened in a couple of horrific instances with what can be done with nuclear power. And they talk about the fallout issue, specifically about how that has been overblown. And it has been. And noting that when it came to Nagasaki and Hiroshima and those nuclear bombs that that they talk about how it would be 2,000 years before anybody can live there. And that fallout issue isn't as bad as people think it is, because they note, look, those are thriving cities today. And so the concerns that people have about the fallout component is overblown, that it isn't thousands and thousands of years before you can occupy an area that has some sort of nuclear devastation, that the time is much shorter than that. So that's what their discussion is about. This is CNN's take on it.
Play one exchange that was kind of classic. Well, there were a lot of exchanges that were classic Donald Trump, but this one really stuck out to us.
And Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So it's really not something that So it's not as scary as people think, basically.
So that was more Elon Musk than Donald Trump talking about, sort of suggesting that what happened almost 80 years ago, I think 80 years ago next year, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now it's okay. Kind of trying to blow off the impact of that.
Now, of course, now you see what they've done here. They've taken a conversation that was about nuclear power and about noting that fallout from nuclear disasters is not as long-term and as devastating as many people believe that it is. And they noted as examples instances in which there have been those nuclear disasters and that instead of being 2,000 years before people can populate those areas, decades later, people populate those areas, so that fallout isn't nearly as bad. CNN edits it to have Elon Musk saying and Donald Trump agreeing that, oh, yeah, those bombs they dropped destroyed this. It really wasn't that bad. It's not that big of a deal. And then painting it as, here these two are talking like, it's not that big of a deal. Dropping a bomb, killing off all those innocent civilians. This is the level of complete and utter dishonesty. And, it's dishonesty in such an evil way. Because what you are doing, what CNN is doing in an instance like that, if they are successful, is convincing a segment of the population that Donald Trump, who could very well be president once again, doesn't think it's that big of a deal to kill off hundreds of thousands of people with nuclear weapons. It is the further attempt to disinform people in a manner that makes them believe that Donald Trump is dangerous, whether it is CNN falsely portraying and editing audio to make it sound like he thinks dropping nuclear bombs is no big deal, or Joe Biden claiming that he's a danger to democracy. I mean, it is as if these media outlets and these Democrat Party officials just feel as if we just came so close to getting him killed. We came so close to having him assassinated. We've just got to amp up the rhetoric, keep our foot on the pedal, keep telling people that if he continues to exist, we're all doomed. Because all it's going to take, it took one, and he almost succeeded. We got one more person who believes us. Last week, Biden said it doesn't matter whether Trump gets elected or not, he's a danger to this country. So he's sending the message out there to would-be assassins that even if Trump loses, we're in danger. If they are unsuccessful in inciting somebody to take out Trump before the election, or if he gets elected during his term, I will be surprised at this point. They know what they're doing. Hey, you got a home loan need at your fingertips, be it your computer, iPad, cell phone. iwantagreathomeloan.com. It is a tremendous informational resource in addition to your connection to the characters in their team. With any free financing questions you have, I recommend that if they are not your go-to, I won't even suggest, make them your go-to. That's what I do. That's what I personally do recommend to other people that I care about, that's your go-to. But listen, I'm just saying, make them one of your contacts. So if you feel comfortable with your current financial service, or you got something in the mail saying we can get you this really low interest rate, once you learn what that actually looks like, go to iwantagreathomeloan.com and then get connected up with the characters in their team. Find out what they can do for you, whether it's refinancing or just financing for the first time for a home loan, or second, third, whatever the time may be. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. So Disney has had a very difficult time. Disney has become synonymous with left-wing social agenda, and it's been a turnoff to a lot of people. What people on the left, because they get tunnel vision, and they can't understand that not everyone is as obsessed 100% of the time with the same things that they are. And so for entertainment, the average person just wants to be entertained. People on the left, they can't do that. They cannot be in charge of a movie and not use it in order to lecture you on how it is that you can be a better person, or demonize people that do not follow the proper script. And this has caused harm to them. And there were already concerns because of the new Snow White that's coming out, and some comments that the actress playing Snow White has made in the past. And then you had, I guess they're using CGI for the dwarfs, because now all of a sudden putting little people out of work that are actors evidently is the compassionate thing to do. And because you don't want to typecast little people as little people. And so instead you CGI it. So already it was dealing with a number of uphill battles. Well, the trailer was released for it. Frank, I watched it. I thought it didn't look, the trailer looked pretty good. I thought some people were critical of the CGI component, but the star, Rachel Zegler, is facing backlash after she's posting about filming and all this stuff. She's posting about the movie, promoting the movie, and then she has to throw in there Free Palestine. Given the fact that Gal Gadot, who is Israeli, also stars in the movie, many people are recognizing this, or viewing it as, at the very least, insensitive, if anything, but really sticking it to her as well. So, once again, the left just cannot help themselves. Glenn Beck's next. Talk to you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.